All right, section 1.6. So 1.5 was all about quadratics. 1.6 and 1.7, we're going to kind of round out this chapter with other types of equations. So 1.6, more specifically, we're going to talk about a little bit more about some factoring is what we're going to start off with. So notice 1.6, we've got right here, we've got an x to the third power. So remember quadratics, the highest exponent is x squared. So now we've got an x to the third. And notice we've got 4 terms. And so we're going to factor this in a special way. So of course, the first step is to get every term on the same side, where this is called general form. It doesn't really matter what equation you're dealing with, putting everything on the same side is putting it into general form. So I'm going to move this 81x over here and this 81. And remember, when it changes sides, it changes sign. So this becomes x to the third plus x squared minus 81x minus 81 equals 0. And we always order them in descending order. That means x to the third, then x squared, then an x, and then my constant, always in descending order. Now, when I have 4 terms, I'm going to factor by grouping. Factor by grouping. So I'm going to group the first 2 terms together and the second 2 terms together. So now what can I factor out of x to the third and x squared? I'm going to take out an x squared. And remember, factoring is the opposite of distribution. So what I'm left with is x plus 1. Now I'm also going to factor out of this second group of parentheses. And my goal is so that this group of parentheses and this group of parentheses are exactly the same. And so what do I need to take out here so that this group is exactly the same, so that I have an x plus 1 here? Well, if I take out a negative 81, I'm going to be left with x plus 1. Here. Now, this is the part where I kind of lose people. And I'm just going to rewrite this step. And you've actually done this lots of times. When you FOIL, you just don't realize it. So let me show you. I'm going to do different colors and maybe that will help. Everything that's on the outside comes together. So x squared minus 81. And then my parentheses, or my x plus 1s that are exactly the same, they come together. Okay? And I just have one of them. So let me just show you how this works. So this is just a little side note over here. I'm just going to rewrite this. So let's say I started with something like this and I was going to FOIL it. I was going to, use double distribution. So remember, f o is x squared times x squared times 1, right? That's x squared, and I'm multiplying it times both of those. And then I say, okay, the inside and the outside, and the last 2 terms, so negative 81 times x plus 1 equals 0. So doesn't this line match this line exactly? So it's just another way of writing when you FOIL, and that's what allows us to rewrite it into this line like this, okay? So the things that are on the outside come together, or what I've got in this purple color here, and then my parentheses come together into one, or what I have as the blue. So now this is factored form. And remember to go from factored form to solutions. Split the factors apart, set them equal to 0. This is just like when we were doing quadratics. So this is x squared minus 81 equals 0. X plus 1 equals 0. And I solve each little equation here. So we know this is going to be -1. That's the easier one, so we'll start with that one. Here, I'm going to add 81. X squared equals 81. And I don't want x squared, I want x. So if I take the square root of both sides, x equals plus or minus 9. So here are my solutions. So my solution set is plus or minus 9 and -1. Okay, so if I have 4 terms, I'm going to factor by grouping. So number 2. Let's draw a little line here. It's great. All right, number 2, I've got 2 terms. So I'm not going to factor by grouping. I'm just going to take out what they have in common. And so let's look at their coefficients first. 8 and 32, or -32. So let me rewrite. Let's see, let's come over here. I'm just going to rewrite where I've got a little bit more room. Actually, it should be a 32. And I want to factor out 8 for sure, and an x squared. So what that's going to leave me is x squared, take it off from up here so we don't confuse you here, minus 4 equals 0. Okay, so I just factored out an 8x squared. Remember, that's the opposite of distribution. So here I've got factored form. So again, from factored form to solutions, split them apart, set them equal to 0, and solve. So 8x squared equals 0. X squared minus 4 equals 0. So here, divide by 8, and x squared equals 0. 0 divided by 8 is 0. And if I take the square root of both sides, x equals 0, because the square root of 0 is just 0. Now, I don't have to use the plus or minus here, because 0 is neither positive nor negative. Now, over here, I'm going to add 4, get x squared equals 4. I take the square root of both sides, x equals plus or minus 2. So my solution set is 0 plus or minus 2. All right, number 3. I've got 4 terms again. So I'm going to factor by grouping. The first thing I need to do is get everything on the same side. Now, this is my leading coefficient because it's got the biggest exponent. So I want to try and keep that one positive. And so I'm going to move everything over to this side. And so I'm going to subtract 18x, and I'm going to add 9. So let's draw a line here, kind of separate the space. So that's going to give me 2x cubed minus x squared minus 18x plus 9. And that's going to equal 0. All right, 4 terms. That means factor by grouping. So we group the first 2 together and the last 2 together. So out of the first group, I'm going to factor out an x squared. That leaves me with 2x minus 1. So remember, my goal is to factor something out here so that my second set of parentheses looks exactly like my first one. So I need to factor out a negative 9. That will leave me with a 2x minus 1 here. So remember, let me use the colors here. On the outside comes together, so x squared minus 9. And then my two identical sets of parentheses come together to make one parenthesis here equals 0. So here we are, factored form. So from factored form to solutions, split them apart, set them equal to 0. So x squared minus 9 equals 0, 2x minus 1 is 0. And solve each equation. So plus 9 here. X squared equals 9. Take the square root, get x equals plus or minus 3. Our second one, add 1, get 2x equals 1, divide by 2, x equals 1/2. So our solution set is plus or minus 3, 1/2. Work on the squiggles here. Okay. Number 4. Again, we've got 4 terms again. Now the point of number 4 is, again, we have to put everything on the same side, but remember they have to be in descending order. So here is my leading term. It's got the largest exponent. This is going to be my second term. It needs to come over to this side. It's got the y squared. Plain old y is going to come next, and then my constant is going to come last. So we're going to end up with 81y cubed. I'm going to add 405y squared to bring it over to the left side. So plus 405y squared. I have to subtract y, so minus y. And then negative 5 is already on that left side, so it's going to stay negative over there. All right, still 4 terms. So we're going to factor by grouping again, like this. And so let's take out from this first group, they have 81y squared in common. And that's going to leave me with a y plus 5. So I need to take something out here so that my second set of parentheses is going to be the same. And that's just going to be a negative 1, because that will change this to be a y plus 5. All right, remember the outside comes together. 81y squared minus 1. And then my parentheses come together. So here we've got factored form. All right, split those factors apart. Set them equal to 0. And solve. Yeah, let's do the easy one first. Y equals negative 5 over here. And then our first one, let's add 1. Get 81y squared equals 1. And divide by 81. Y squared equals 1 over 81. And then take the square root of each side. So y equals plus or minus. Now the square root of 1 over 81 is 1 over 9. Square root of 1 is 1. Square root of 81 is 9. So my solution set is -5 and plus or minus 1/9.